Hello, everybody. Welcome to the most censored comedian in America and one of the most censored journalists in America. You guys make this show possible, so thank you for joining me and supporting the show. But I got a lot to tell you today. We're going to talk about the National Guard shooting and some of the stuff that the mainstream media will tell you, such as his connections to the CIA, but also some of what the mainstream media will not tell you about the National Guard shooting. We'll also get into Trump's recent interference in the Honduran election, jumping in there to try and rig those results. I'm also going to get into the more and more signs that the AI bubble is getting ready to burst, or perhaps it'll be a slow deflation over several months of just and we'll all just hear the balloon sound just like outside our homes, just up in the sky, just as we hear it deflating. But thank you guys. I hope you had a good respite on this holiday. If you're in the United States, the holiday, the origins of which shall not be named. We will not discuss the origins of how we ended up with this holiday. Genocide. But let's get into so here is some of the facts that the mainstream media will tell you about the shooter. For those, I think everyone knows now, but a man drove across the country to Washington, D.C. to shoot two National Guards people, one woman, one man. The man is still clinging to life. The woman has died of her wounds. This was right outside the White House here in the United States. And the National Guard suspect was in one of the CIA's Zero units. So this is from the Washington Post. Because at first we were just hearing, the first coverage of it was just Afghan man shoots two National Guards people, kills one of them, end of story, right? And now we're hearing, not only was he in the Afghan military that allied itself with the U.S. military, but he was also working with whatever preposition you'd like to insert there, the CIA in their fairly secretive or highly secretive Zero units. Ramanullah Lakanwal, 29, who officials say drove across the country to carry out Wednesday's attack, was detained moments after opening fire. Lakanwal was five when the U.S. and allied forces invaded Afghanistan in the aftermath of September 11th, marking the start of what would become the U.S.'s longest war. We like to call it a war, even though it's an invasion. You mean our longest invasion? No, that wouldn't really be true, because we continue to invade countries long after we've ended the so-called war on them. I believe we're still technically invading Iraq, aren't we? But yes, U.S.'s longest war, where we really did some impressive stuff while we were there in Afghanistan. We successfully replaced the Taliban with the Taliban. So, people can't act like it was all for naught, okay? Because when the Taliban finally took over for the Taliban, we said, there you go. See what we're doing here? We achieved some big goals there, replacing the Taliban with the Taliban. We also created a lot of ghost schools, a lot of ghost soldiers. Washington Post actually did coverage on how the Pentagon had spent billions and billions of dollars on schools in Afghanistan. Didn't exist. Soldiers in Afghanistan didn't exist. All kinds of things in Afghanistan that didn't technically exist. So we did a lot. It was a lot of ghost things that were built, invented, funded. Anyway, 2 decades later, so he lived in a war zone basically his entire childhood while the United States disrupted and destroyed Afghanistan. 2 decades later, Lakanwal was among tens of thousands of Afghan nationals who came to the U.S. as part of Operation Allies Welcome, a Biden-era program to bring to the United States those who had helped us fight their own people in Afghanistan. But it gets deeper. CIA Director John Radcliffe said Lakanwal had been a member of a partner force in Kandahar, a province in southern Afghanistan that saw significant fighting during the war. Lochinwall was part of one of the CIA's Zero units that was involved in combat missions to seize or kill suspected terrorists, according to several people familiar. At first we were hearing that, he was allied with the CIA to protect people at the air base when we were leaving Afghanistan. Well, boy, that is the nice way of saying, of ignoring the larger aspect, which is to seize and kill suspected terrorists. And what does the U.S. call suspected terrorists? Pretty much any military age male in Afghanistan, I think we called a terrorist at one point or another. So this guy was part of the CIA effort to run around Afghanistan murdering people, many of them completely innocent. Even the ones who were not, quote unquote, innocent were fighting an invading force. The Zero units, also known as National Strike Units, were involved in dangerous and often deadly night raids. It's funny how night raids can become deadly for the people who've decided to run into someone's house in the middle of the night and start shooting them and their family. It's funny how quickly that type of thing can become a little dangerous for the people running in and shooting families. And anyway, night raids and other missions to kill or capture members of the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, other terrorist groups, other things we claim are terrorists. Could be a 95-year-old. Well, we'll call that military age male. Why not? Could be a wedding party. Yeah, but you don't know what that wedding party was up to. The CIA and U.S. military provided intelligence and logistical support to the squads. The CIA has never publicly acknowledged its work with the Zero units. Yeah, it didn't really publicly acknowledge anything, which have been shadowed by allegations of human rights violations, including a 2019 Human Rights Watch report that found they had conducted summary executions and other abuses. So I think that counts as ex-CIA. Yes, it's slightly different than being an American in the CIA, but still, that's former CIA in my book. They're like, no, he's not former CIA. He's just a guy who worked with the CIA. Well, then what do you call that then? What is that? But so there's definitely some mainstream media talk of his connection to the CIA. But here's what you won't get from the mainstream media, no matter what. They so rarely say this. Now, I know that this is not technically a mass shooting because mass shootings have to involve 4 or more people that were shot with bullets, as opposed to mass killings is 4 or more people killed. So this is not technically on the list of mass shootings or killings, but it is a well-known event involving murder in the U.S. public eye right now. And I have brought this to many people's attention many times, but you don't hear it much. And the only one really collecting these stats that I've seen is David Swanson at World Beyond War. David Swanson, and he does updates on this. This is not just, he didn't just collect these stats one time and then stop. He continues to update his stats on how many mass shooters are connected to U.S. military. This actually says specifically our veterans. 32% of all the mass shooters in the United States are veterans. And the reason I say connected to the military is if you were to add to that number the number of mass shooters who have had some connection to U.S. military, ROTC, the guy who was the attempted assassin of Donald Trump, not the one who hit Donald Trump's ear, but the other one at the golf course. He had not technically been in the U.S. military, but he had tried very hard to join the effort to basically be foreign mercenaries in Ukraine, supporting the U.S. proxy war. So he had connections to U.S. military efforts, even if not within the U.S. military. So he doesn't count as a veteran. But once you add in, there's several more beyond just the 32% that have some connection to U.S. military. But anyway, when you add up all those numbers, you get 32% are former U.S. military. I don't know that number includes someone like like Timothy McVeigh, who obviously one of the, does he still hold the record? The largest mass killer on U.S. property in the past many hundred years or maybe ever. Timothy McVeigh is former military, but in Oklahoma, but I don't know that he would be on this list because he's not a mass shooter. So anyway, the overall point is that yet again, we have a well-known example of violence in America, of murder in America that is connected in one way or another to the U.S. military. This one happens to be an Afghan national who has come to the United States, but he was part of U.S. military efforts and CIA efforts in Afghanistan. Anyway, this will never get covered. David Swans is really the only one who collects this data and puts it forward, or one of the only ones. There is a database in Mother Jones, so Mother Jones will sometimes reference it. But it is amazing the amount of carnage that is connected to the U.S. military. And I also did another piece for Substack, which you guys can read, about the definition of violence when we're in the midst of seeing a grand violent event like these National Guards people being shot, one of them killed, and you will rightfully see the media talk about violence and this horrific moment of violence and things like that. What you won't hear, which is what my Substack column is about, it's free to read, by the way, is that they won't use that term, violence, to define so much of the corporate violence against Americans that is done every day. And I go through a long list on my Substack with links to every single one. But I say, I'll just read a little portion. Is allowing people to die or fall ill due to lead pipes in Flint, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and thousands of other cities across America, does that not count as violence when they know it's happening and they could stop it for what would be, relative to the richest people in the world, a couple of pennies rubbed together? Is allowing citizens to lose their lives to cancer from Teflon chemicals dumped in the water or from preventable oil spills not violence? Is allowing tens of thousands to die every year due to our dumpster fire healthcare system not violence? Is allowing 15 million to lose their healthcare during a pandemic and therefore fearing to go to the hospital even when they're sick, does that not count as violence? Is imprisoning millions of people for years for non-violent crimes not violence? You get the idea. I know some of you read it, so I won't go through the whole thing. But if any of you would like to read that column, please go over to reallycamp.substack.com. It is free to read there. And please subscribe for free if you have a second, because I would like to thank you all. My Substack has been growing, and it's like 38 in Substack's World Politics list. And it actually got into the top 100 bestsellers on Substack. Bestseller just means paid subscribers. It actually cracked the top 100 there for a minute. It was number 98 on Substack's bestsellers. And that it really is helping this show keep going. It's helping my work keep going. Thank you, Mick, and those of you who are saying that it's a great Substack. I've been working hard on that, and yeah, can't thank you enough for that support. If you have I think if you were to pay for a year, you'd be paying $6.67 a month if you pay for the full year at once. And if you have that laying around, then please become a paying subscriber. I'm hoping to get 100 new ones by the end of the year. We've already gotten like 10 since I announced that, so we're already down to like 90 by the end of the year. And if you don't have $6.67, then just become a free subscriber. reallycamp.substack.com. And while we're on the topic of content and where to get it, please check out the new and improved Rad Indie Media. We've been working hard on it. It maybe doesn't look as snazzy as it used to, but it is far more updated than it once was. So I think it's a much better resource for your kind of daily news than it used to be. You can see if you just go to radindiemedia.com then that's INDIE, not Y. So radindiemedia.com. You can just go through all the top stories from all these great sources: Sheer Post, Popular Resistance, Truth Out, Common Dreams, Consortium News, My Substack, Counterpunch, Caitlin Johnstone, all these great sites: Drop Site News, Truth Out, Electronic Intifada. It's all there, and you can just scroll down it. And unlike a lot of other sites that are maybe similar, not only does it only have the best media, not corporate garbage, but it also just sends you straight. If you click on one, it just sends you straight to their site. Like, we're not grabbing any, we're not making any money from it, unless you want to donate, but we're not making any money from it. So, yeah, that's a great place to grab your media. All right, let's keep it going though. Trump has been bribing, or is tempted to bribe, Hondurans to rig the election there. And actually, I should give this one first. As of the recording, they may announce a winner very shortly here. I don't know. But as of the recording of this, they have not. The voting was yesterday. Conservatives ahead of governing party in Honduras presidential vote as early results are coming in. The two conservative challengers were practically tied for the lead in Honduras's presidential contest, with votes from about 55% of polling places counted early Monday, according to preliminary and partial results. The previous day's vote has come just days after President Donald Trump intervened in the close race by endorsing one of those candidates and announcing he would pardon a former president. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the former president he is pardoning. He's announced he's pardoning. Let's see here. This is from Drop Site. In a social media post Wednesday, Trump expressed his support for Nasri Tito Asfura of the Conservative National Party, while simultaneously taking the opportunity to sharply criticize the other two leading candidates. The boost for Asfura could paradoxically benefit left-wing candidate, although it looks like either Asfura or the other conservative is going to win. But Trump doubled down on his endorsement, suggesting he would withhold U.S. cooperation and aid with Honduras if he did not win, if Asfura did not win, and furthermore committed to pardoning former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who sits in federal prison for narco trafficking. And, Trump has tried this before. It did not work with Mamdani, saying he was going to cut off billions in aid to New York if you don't vote for who he wants to. This type of election interference is not really known by U.S. presidents. Trump is kind of the first to do this. Now, be careful if you say the U.S. does not normally intervene in democracy like this. Oh, yes, we fucking do. We just do it slightly differently. We have a million ways of trying to intervene and screw up and rig other countries' democracy if they have one. Sometimes we'll just assassinate people. What do you know? Sometimes we'll get them locked up in prison like Imran Khan to make sure they can't win the next election. Or Lula da Silva. We've done that many times. So do not kid yourself that Trump is the first U.S. president to intervene in other countries' democracy. He's just the first to, from the Oval Office, say, elect this guy or else I'm going to cut off money, or else I'm not going to bribe you adequately. He's the first maybe to announce that type of thing. But we have been rigging. I mean, we have worked hard to try and rig Venezuela's elections. We just have failed time and time again. One time, we even announced that some random dude was president of Venezuela, even though he'd never gotten a single vote for the office. But why not just announce that another dude is president? Trump's pardon of the major narco trafficker comes as he threatens war with Venezuela and rages a campaign of extrajudicial killing of boats he claims are associated with drug trafficking. Most are not. Most are just fishermen, but why not murder them? Trump's message mirrors his strategy ahead of Argentina's legislative elections in October, where he offered a $20 billion bailout to the country only if Javier Milei's party, Milei wasn't up for election, but his party was, performed well And so, yeah, he's bribing these countries. It seems that he very well could get what he wanted in this election. Like I said, the results have not been announced yet. Other countries, see, they actually like take a day or two when there's a close election to actually kind of count the votes and figure out what happened. When that's what happens when you have like a slightly more legit election, is you actually take the time to count the votes and to see if it's real and stuff. Here in the US, what we do is whoever rigs the most shit, we just yell that's who won. And we do that whether votes have been counted. And then if it's taking like an extra hour or so, we say this is why we need to have easily hackable voting machines wherever you vote so that you can calculate these numbers really quick. Who cares if they're hackable? Who cares if you never see the code? Who cares if you have no idea whether when you pushed on a screen anything actually happened? None of that matters. What matters is that you get a result quickly, okay? That is all that matters. Yeah, so Mike Davis is asking, it's an interesting question, so I'll interrupt for a moment to address this. Mike Davis says, U.S. is bad, everyone knows that, but why? Is it because of capitalism? Are we the only capitalist country in the world? No, Mike, you're right. There are other capitalist countries in the world, and the capitalism in those countries fucking sucks for them too. But there's a big but. We are the most unfettered and the most extractive and the most powerful of those extractive countries as of this date. We have the global reserve currency. We have the petrodollar. We have the largest military. We spend $1 trillion a year on military, while most other countries cannot even come anywhere close to that, or their currency would collapse and they'd go into such debt, their entire economy would collapse. So no, capitalism is a major problem that causes a lot of harm to the world. But the U.S. is strategically positioned to be the most powerful and most unfettered of the capitalist countries. And the extraction from the global south to the global north, but really the west of the global north, but mainly, we'll just say global north for the sake of it, has been hundreds of trillions of dollars extracted from the global south, given to the global north, which is all those capitalist countries. It is Europe, it is the United States, it is Canada. But that group, I mean, Europe is now been largely forced back into a vassal system beneath the United States. As are many other countries, Canada, Australia, Israel. And so, yeah, the U.S. is just the head of the monster. I hope that answered some of it. But anyway, so yes, Trump is working hard to intervene in Honduras's election. Laura, this is again from Dropside, Laura Carlson, an international election observer, says it's a blatant form of intervention that we haven't seen in U.S. policy for a long, long time. But as I mentioned, we do destroy the democracies of other countries. It's normally not the president saying, if you don't vote for someone, I'm going to cut off all aid. The quote continues, it's extremely worrisome in that context, but it's also part of a much larger campaign on the part of the global far right, of which Trump is a prime representative. The former president, Castro's government, presided over significant investments in public infrastructure, such as hospitals and schools, and made important advancements in stopping the efforts to privatize the country's electricity grid, restoring it as a public good. Under her leadership, Honduras also rolled back the legal framework that once allowed the proliferation of special economic zones, known as ZEDEs, that would have created privatized autonomous city-states. So basically, there was a president in charge of Honduras that was doing a lot of social good, and the U.S. does not want that. The U.S. wants to be able to extract as much as possible from Honduras. They also want Honduras to ally with them on efforts to do such things as coup Venezuela or coup other countries, such as Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador. I mean, we've done all of them at some point. But anyway, we'll see what ends up happening in Honduras. Let's move on to the dozens. I wanted to show this video. Dozens arrested at pro-Palestine demonstrations in the UK. The UK has really been at the forefront of arresting people for what we'd call freedom of speech, for speaking, for holding up a sign. And I just want to show you some video. These cops trying to arrest people. One of them had a sign that was in, I can't tell which language it is, but in another language, which the cops couldn't figure out what it was, and it was making them angry. But anyway.
It's in a language they can't translate.
What language is it in?
No, I'm not going to tell you what it is.
I was hoping you would.
It's Asian. I am face to face with evil here, Kia. This is absolutely chilling. Yeah, they're out of control. Here, you're going to need to get a handle on this, mate.
For those of you listening to the podcast, it is showing literally old grandmas, etc., being arrested for sitting and holding a sign. And they're not being arrested for blocking something. In the U.S., we do a lot of that, right? If you block a driveway to an ice center, they will arrest you, generally speaking, or you block almost anything, they'll arrest you in the U.S. But they're being arrested for holding up a sign that shows support for Palestine, or specifically shows support for Palestine Action, the group that has done a lot of good work in terms of fighting against genocide. And the UK has declared that group a terrorist group, which they've never done anything terrorist at all, but they've gone ahead and done that. Dozens of protesters from BBC, which is a pro-Israel, disgusting pro-genocide rag, but they did report on this. Dozens of protesters have been arrested under the Terrorism Act as a series of pro-Palestine demonstrations held across England. The organizers said they were protesting against our government's complicity in genocide and against the ban on direct action group Palestine Action. Chief Inspector James Littlehouse, so this is a cop for those in the U.S. who don't know what that means, said, "We fully recognize people's right to demonstrate peacefully, and many people continue to protest in support of Palestine without breaking the law. But we will take appropriate action where people are breaching the law by showing support for prescribed organizations." Can you say that again, but slower? We support people's right to protest, except we're arresting them for holding up signs where they're breaching the law by showing support. So literally, this head cop is saying, we totally support their right to demonstrate peacefully and to protest in support of Palestine unless they hold up a sign that supports Palestine. What the actual fuck are you talking about? Can you hear yourself? Did you put the second part of the sentence with the first part of the sentence? And this has gone on for several months in the UK. They will arrest people for holding up certain kinds of signs. It is, whatever the polar opposite of freedom of speech is, but it also, let's remember, is protesting against genocide. And the UK is not okay with that. And they want to lock people up for it. It is truly, truly fascist. Okay, I want to get to the AI bubble. Is showing more and more signs of heading towards bursting. I want to get to that real quick. Let me remind everybody, I have a live show. I don't get to perform live as much as I used to. Live show, New York City, December 12th. We're 11 days away. And let's see if I can pull it up here. So if you're in New York or nearby, New Jersey, that's an easy trip. Connecticut. I'm just going to keep listing things that are near New York. Connecticut's an easy trip. Pennsylvania, honestly, like if a train from Philly to New York, like couple hours. What are we talking about here? So I'd love for you to come October, December 12th, 9 p.m., Cobra Club in Brooklyn. And it is me and John F. O'Donnell from Redacted Tonight, live stand-up comedy. It costs a whopping, once you add in tax, it costs a whopping $12.50 to attend. And, just a chill, small venue. So I hope you'll come hang out with me. December 12th. What is that, Friday? Yeah, I think. I don't know. Whatever it is, it is. And I hope you'll come hang out with us. tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club. You'll find it there. tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club. You could also probably just look up the Cobra Club in Brooklyn and click on events. I bet you'd find it there. But anyway, it's gonna be a great show. Sorry, trying to read some comments here, but I can't really read the comments or most of the comments and do the show at the same time. So I'm going to go back into the show. But all right, so the AI bubble, and I like to be clear here because I think a lot of people, when they talk about the AI bubble, they think it means the fact that it's a bubble means that AI is going to have no impact on our society and it's just a gimmick. And, oh, look, you can type something in and it says something. No, it absolutely is going to have a massive impact on our society. It already is. Hundreds of thousands of jobs have already been purged. There are estimates that it'll go into 100 million jobs that will become obsolete. All of that will happen. When people mostly are talking about the AI bubble bursting, they're talking about the stocks of companies that are AI connected. That's what they're talking about bursting. That is most of the discussion. So when you hear about AI bursting, don't think it means that AI won't have an impact on our society. It will. But I'm going to give you some of the signs that the bubble is bursting. And a lot of the U.S. economy right now is based on AI, because the U.S. doesn't have a lot going on right now. We have insane debt. The petrodollar is fading. We're in a waning empire. And so this bubble is a lot of what's propping up the U.S. economy in general. So it's not just these AI companies that will have some big impact. The Guardian is running when they burst. The Guardian is running with the headline, the question isn't whether the AI bubble will burst, but what the fallout will be. And I'm going to give you some from that article, but I'm also going to give you plenty that is not in that article or what they're leaving out. But anyway, he starts off in this article talking about the California gold rush. And this is a favorite analogy of people addressing the AI bubble. Because the California gold rush, if you actually look at the numbers, the vast majority of people involved in the gold rush, not just California, there were gold rushes elsewhere, but did not make any money or make a lot of money or make much money. The vast majority either lost a shit ton of money or, made maybe a little, but not much. So I'm noticing, is the visual glitchy for you guys? It seems kind of glitchy for me. I'm going to try doing Ethernet instead, and we'll see what happens. If I cut off, hang in there. All right, let's see if this is smoother for the moment. Okay, so, or maybe not at all. If it's the same, then don't bother telling me because there's nothing I can do. If it gets worse, let me know because I'll try and I'll go back to Wi-Fi if this is worse. Okay, so So a lot of them talk about the California gold rush because the people who made money, and I see Citizen Pendejo in the comments is ahead of the curve. The people who made the money sold things like shovels and overalls that people needed to do the digging. It wasn't actually the searching for the gold that made the biggest amount of money. There were some people that got crazy rich, but it was a tiny, tiny number. The vast majority of those who made some money on the gold rush were actually just selling the implements to go gold rushing. So people are saying there's some similarities here where there is a gold rush in terms of investing in stocks that are connected to AI, such as the company OpenAI, which is creates ChatGPT. There's NVIDIA, not NVIDIA. Actually, NVIDIA is the biggest one, and they're the ones selling the shovels. They're selling the chips to companies like Microsoft, OpenAI, and so many others. Amazon is really an AI company. Meta's turning into an AI company, like Google Alphabet. So NVIDIA is selling the shovels. But the problem is that even NVIDIA is 60% of all the shovels they're selling are to like 4 or 5 companies. And if those companies have a catastrophic, few months because the AI bubble bursts, NVIDIA will burst as well, just because it is such a large percentage of their profit selling those chips is coming from 5-6 companies. And there's also the factor that NVIDIA is investing, and we can't know all the numbers. Many of it is covered up, but NVIDIA is pumping money into OpenAI, Microsoft, etc., Apple, because it needs them to have money, so they're doing well, so they buy the chips. It is a human caterpillar. It is eating your own snake eating its own tail. So if these AI companies like OpenAI start to go bust, then NVIDIA won't have people buying these crazy expensive chips. There's also another factor, which is that China has proven that you can create something like ChatGPT by spending a few $1 million rather than billions. And you can create something that is open source and competitive to OpenAI, maybe even better than OpenAI. And it's open source, so anybody in the world can create it. And OpenAI, when that happened, when DeepSeek was revealed by, as a Chinese company, but people have accused it of being, run by the Chinese government, which it's not. But when it was revealed, OpenAI claimed it was plagiarism. Oh, they stole our idea of having, AI, and which other people found hilarious because it's basically OpenAI is a plagiarism company. Like its models are stealing content from around the globe and merging it into something else. So it is a plagiarism company. So essentially it was a plagiarism company saying, you can't plagiarize our plagiarism ideas. That was our plagiarism idea. I mean, it really is. It's just a fucking shit show. A shit show, which capitalism at the end of the day is. I'll answer one question real quick. B Palfa, who knows how to pronounce that? B Palfa wants to know if I've ever had Whitney Webb on. I may have interviewed her on Redacted Tonight way back in the day. I think I interviewed her one time. But I think that she is not interested in being on my show. I'm not sure what her qualm is or why she doesn't like me, but it's okay. I don't need everyone to like me. We were in discussion for her to be on my show when I had a show with Mint Press, which was now over 2.5 years ago. But once we started setting dates to do the interview, she disappeared. So I don't know if it's because she decided she didn't like me. I have no idea. But whatever it was, thank you for the guest recommendation. I know she does pretty good work. I think she's not interested. God forbid someone not be interested in my show. So here's from Guardian. NVIDIA is at least selling something, computer chips. The valuations of many of the other AI companies like OpenAI or Anthropic are based largely on a dream. Not 20 years ago, we suffered the housing bubble when home prices rose to stratospheric heights and almost brought down the financial system as they crashed back to earth. I should throw in here before Guardian moves on. This is classic mainstream media. Is like, let's leave out, it's lying. When it's not full on lying, it's lying by omission. Let's leave out the fact that catastrophic collapse was caused by a complete lies by everyone along the way. I was going to say by the stock market and Wall Street, but not just them. It was everyone along the way. It was the banks lying to the homeowners, predatory lending. It was the SEC lying. It was Wall Street lying. It was the companies that were selling these tranches of mortgage-backed securities. They were lying about how good it was. It was the ratings companies like Moody's that were essentially lying to try and prop these things up, and Standard & Poor and such. So you just had lying and fraud throughout the whole system. But eventually, people can't pay these things because it's all been built on lies. So eventually, it collapses. And this is what capitalism is. Capitalism creates this boom-bust cycle. In the United States, it averages every 4 to 7 years that a lot across America lose their whole life savings based on these boom-bust cycles. It usually means that the money that is lost is more average Americans, more middle-class Americans. The money that seems to somehow still be gained is in the richest of the rich. You saw this in the mortgage crisis. The richest of the rich largely did not suffer. So anyway, Guardian continues. Less than a decade earlier, it was the dot-com bubble that burst when investors realized that Webvan, I haven't even heard of that one, and Pets.com and the like were not worth billions just because they had a website. Oh, that was a fun one. For those of you who were alive for that one, that was a funny one. Would the fallout include a hobbled financial system? So he then says, I skipped the part where he says, basically, the AI bubble will burst. It's showing signs, and I'm going to get into that in a second. It's showing signs of headed that way already. And the only question is, how catastrophic will it be? Will it end up in depression, recession? Will it be like the 2008 collapse, which was truly catastrophic and millions of Americans lost their homes? And the U.S. government comes running in with trillions of dollars to prop up the whole catastrophic system? Or will it be like the dot-com bubble where, some businesses go out, some people lose their life savings, but for the most part, it's going to be fine. It's okay. So he says, would the fallout include a hobbled financial system and an intractable, prolonged recession as the bursting of the housing bubble left in its wake? Former chief economist of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, calculated that a stock market crash equivalent to that which ended the dot-com boom would erase some $20 trillion in American household wealth and another $15 trillion abroad, enough to strangle consumer spending and induce a recession. It wouldn't be such a problem if the bubble were financed largely from the cash pile of Alphabet and Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook. They may lose their shirt, but who cares? They're the richest of the rich, and honestly, they're going to be fine, even if they don't do great. The worrying bit is that it seems they are increasingly relying on borrowing, which means the prospect of the bursting bubble would again put the financial system at risk. Oh, interesting. So the richest companies in the fucking world can borrow the riskiest money they need because they know it's a bubble. So they're borrowing these billions and billions of dollars, knowing that the government will likely bail them out. And in fact, Sam Altman and the another head of OpenAI had publicly said, essentially, because they can all see it's a bubble. They all know it's a bubble. they don't know who's going to come out on top of the bubble. They don't know whether OpenAI, after the bubble bursts, somehow hangs in there and is still pivotal in technological advancements. And, 10 years from now, OpenAI is as large as Alphabet, and we talk about it like it's the Lord Almighty. Who knows? But they know there's a bubble. And Sam Altman, head of OpenAI, one of the heads of OpenAI, and others have publicly basically called for the federal government to ensure that when this bubble bursts, they're going to be okay. And it was such a viral story that, OpenAI knows it's a bubble. They're asking for the federal government to back them up. That then Sam Altman had to come out and try and claim, no, we weren't saying the federal government needs to back us up. And then, of course, they were saying that the federal government needs to back them up. The Guardian continues, the worrying bit, is that it's borrowing, which means the prospect of bursting bubble would put the financial system at risk. Big tech has raised nearly $250 billion in debt so far this year, according to Bloomberg, a record. Analysts at Morgan Stanley suggest that debt will be needed to fill a $1.5 trillion funding gap to ramp up spending on data centers and hardware. Problematically, it is getting hard to follow the money as NVIDIA, OpenAI, and others in the ecosystem buy into each other. Circle jerk. That's code for circle jerk each other. Clouding who, in the end, will be left holding the bag. Oh, you gotta love capitalism. You gotta love it. The richest of the rich are all investing in each other to prop up, inflate this bubble. I won't mix the metaphors. I won't do it. But the alligators on the outside of the bubble, I will mix the metaphor. Prop up the bubble. They're all investing in each other so that they can keep each other aloft. And it's unknown who in the end is going to be the one that really gets royally fucked. We saw this with, the largest banks during the 2008 collapse, right? Goldman Sachs and Citibank, et cetera. We saw them all run to Washington and have late night debate sessions on basically who's gonna be accountable for how much money, who's gonna get propped up, who's gonna be allowed to fail. Lehman Brothers, right, was one of the biggest to collapse during that time. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs comes out bigger than ever. Citibank comes out bigger than ever. Some of the other banks that were very large but are basically sold to Goldman and others for pennies. Wachovia was a big one back then. What's another one that I was thinking of another one that was basically sold off to the bigger investment firms. And we'll probably see something similar. And the U.S. will, of course, go running to the U.S. government will go running to save these things because capitalism only survives with gigantic levels of socialism. Like, that is the only way capitalism keeps going because it has these massive boom bust cycles. And then the government says, don't worry, we have the people's money and we're just going to throw the people's money at the problem to prop this shitstorm mixed metaphor up. I need to come up with something I yell every time I mix a metaphor. But yeah, it needs socialism to keep going. And that's what we're going to see. And this AI bubble is on the brink. And here is more evidence that this AI bubble is on the brink. The heads of Palantir, who will tell you in interviews, if you watch the interviews with these fucking murderous clowns, straight out of Stephen King's It, if you watch interviews with these assholes, Alex Karp and the others, Peter Thiel, they'll tell you that that Palantir is God's gift, or what Peter Thiel says, the Antichrist gift to stocks, and you should all invest. And Palantir stock has shot up like massively over this past year because Trump got into office. Trump is tied to Palantir, tied to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel created J.D. Vance, funded J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, now the vice president. Peter Thiel helped fund Trump's campaign. So they are tied in to the Trump White House. And because of that, this weapons contractor, I think you should just call him a weapons contractor, even though they don't create bombs. They create basically the software and the coding and the AI that facilitates the dropping of the bomb. So I don't care whether you actually drop the actual bomb. You're still a fucking weapons contractor with blood on your hands. So these bloodthirsty maniacs have gotten bigger and bigger because Trump is giving contracts to Palantir, right? He's tied in to Palantir. However, Palantir, their price to profit to the price to earnings ratio is the craziest one anyone has ever seen. They barely have any earnings compared to the price of their stock. I think last time I looked it up, it was at like 230 price to earnings, stock price to earnings. An average, by the way, for a lot of these tech companies and stuff is in the 20s, like 20, 25, 29 is high. Palantir's at 230. Apparently at its highest, it was at like 450 price to earnings because it has very little earnings, but the stock price is through the roof because everyone is saying, oh, AI is getting big. Palantir runs the fucking government, so they'll just keep feeding themselves contracts. Anyway, while they are publicly saying Palantir is the best, it's awesome, it's going to do great, Palantir stock is going down because people are starting to realize it is way overvalued. And here is more sign that this AI bubble is coming to an end. Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, has sold shares worth tens of hundreds of millions at various points this year, including nearly 96 million in one filing, 60 million in another filing. So the CEO of Palantir is getting the fuck out of Palantir. Shyam Sankar, the CTO, sold approximately $21 million worth of stock in a single transaction. Stephen Cohen, the president of Palantir, sold roughly $43 million and $56 million in shares in separate transactions. David Glazer, the CFO, chief financial officer, sold shares worth $2.86 million. Ryan Taylor, the chief revenue officer, sold approximately $9 million in sales, in shares. So even the heads of Palantir are getting the hell out of Palantir. Oh, you can see there. This is when the cockroaches all scatter when the lights are turned on. Here's from Public Citizen. I mentioned that OpenAI had basically is preemptively requesting a government bailout because they can see the writing on the wall. OpenAI's request for massive government bailout package is pure corporate entitlement. OpenAI's request for U.S. government loan guarantees to finance AI infrastructure expansion is an unprecedented ask that would shift enormous financial risk from Silicon Valley investors to American taxpayers. Robert Weissman, co-president of Public Citizen, said OpenAI must rank among the most self-important and brazen corporations in history. Having conjured a $500 billion for-profit corporation from a nonprofit, OpenAI execs now hope that federal government subsidies can supercharge their wealth even further. The worrying thing is the company seems to have discussed the prospect of federal handouts with the Trump White House and received positive signals. Given the Trump regime's eagerness to shower taxpayer subsidies and benefits on favored corporations, it is entirely possible that OpenAI and the White House are concocting a scheme to siphon taxpayer money into OpenAI's coffers. Perhaps not so coincidentally, OpenAI president Greg Brockman was among the attendees at a dinner for donors to Trump's White House ballroom, though neither he nor OpenAI have been reported to be actual donors. Oh, so that just means they found a way to cover it up. Like that guy gave the money to his nephew who then donated it to Trump or whatever. Or they give a promise to Trump, once you're out of the White House, we'll just give you a black bag with fucking millions in it. So yeah, the bubble is at the moment it's deflating. All those stocks are down this month. I looked them up earlier. Palantir, I already talked about, is down. Microsoft is down for the month. Amazon, entire month of November. Amazon is down. Nvidia is down. All these companies are seeing the writing on the wall that this thing is crazy inflated, because that's how capitalism works. It inflates these bubbles, it siphons money, and then during the collapse, it siphons the money from average Americans into the pockets of the richest fucking parasites in the world. And we're seeing it yet again. Something else that I am hoping to write a Substack on soon, that is not mentioned in any of these discussions of AI and the AI bubble, is that the stock market in general is a Ponzi scheme. It is the dictionary definition of a Ponzi scheme. These stocks, we were just talking about Palantir, for example. These stocks are not really worth anything unless you find someone else to buy it from you for that price. It is a worthless piece of paper unless you find another person to buy that piece of paper, that worthless piece of paper off you. If the stock collapses and you can't find people, then you're the one left holding the bag. This is a vintage Ponzi scheme. And the only way that stock keeps going up is if more and more people buy in, or people put in more money. So more and more money keeps coming in. And so you can end up with companies that are barely making anything, but the hype is good. The memes are good. And so people buy into the Ponzi scheme, and you could make money from it if you're not the guy left holding the bag. Same with Ponzi schemes. If you bought into a Ponzi scheme and you were towards the top of the pyramid and you fucking sold it before the thing collapsed, you made a lot of money. You can make a lot of money from a Ponzi scheme. So saying it's a Ponzi scheme is not saying people can't make money. You just got to be able to scam someone else before you're the one that gets scammed. But it is a giant Ponzi scheme. If you look at the fine print of a share of Google, if you were to take that to Google and say, here's my share, give me my money, they would say, well, see in the fine print, it says we owe you 0.01 cents for this share. The share can be worth hundreds of dollars on the stock exchange. But if you went to Google and said, give me the money for my share, they'd say, we owe you a tenth of a penny for this. Because it's not the actual thing that matters. Now, this is different than what the stock market initially was. Initially, you invested in a company, they made profit, they gave you a little share of the profit. That's what it initially was. It is way removed from that. It has nothing to do with that. It is complete abstraction now. And so, we talk about Ponzi schemes, this evil thing, these Ponzi schemes. Well, it's like the dictionary definition of a Ponzi scheme. Go read the SEC's definition of Ponzi scheme. There is no difference. Some people try and claim the difference is that in Ponzi scheme, they're lying to you. They're fucking lying to you. Palantir is lying to you. They're telling you that it's the best stock ever to buy into, and yet they're selling their shares. So the lying and fraud is everywhere. The housing market collapse, that was based on lying and fraud. It was based on lying every step of the way. They were lying about how much the mortgage-backed securities were worth, how secure they were. They were lying to the homeowners when they said, oh, no, you won't have any trouble paying this. It's variable rate. You'll be fine. Well, then the variable rate kicks in. You're fucked. It's all lies. It's lies up and down. So, all right, I am going to do an extra segment right now for those of you on locals. Someone asked me to either consolidate or better explain the ways to support this show. And I am sorry, there are multiple ways to support this show. It has to do with being one of the most suppressed, censored comedians, journalists, whatever you want to call me, in America. If you really want the full story, I'll give you the quick version. When my TV show was canceled, Redacted Tonight, by the U.S. government, by U.S. government sanctions, I created a Patreon quickly because I was like, oh, shit, I want to keep this going. I want to keep producing content for you. The Patreon did well, but back then, there were a lot of discussions, and Patreon was talking about banning people just because they wanted to, just because they didn't like what they were saying. And they actually did it to some people. And so I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, fuck, I got to get away from Patreon because they're banning people. I have had my TikTok banned for no reason. I mean, no reason that was given to me. Facebook shadow banned for no reason that's given to me. My largest YouTube page banned, no reason given. So I'm not unused to seeing that. So I went to locals, which their whole kind of mission statement is we don't we're not going to ban anyone. You can say whatever you want. So the locals page is still where to support me. That's, I'm sorry, that's one hop to a new platform from Patreon to locals. It's to get to that locals page, just type in leecamp.net, take you straight there. Outside of that, I keep the Patreon going just because a lot of people don't want to shift, and okay, it's still there. So if you want to do Patreon, you can do that, patreon.com/leecamp. But the main place is locals. The only other place that I have created for members is my Substack now, because I'm doing more writing, one, and it does seem to be there can be some organic growth on Substack whereas I'm suppressed on most other platforms. So those are the reasons I'm now also on Substack. So those are the main two places: Substack, locals. Yes, you can. There's YouTube as a membership program, but I've never promoted it or anything. They just have it, so you can become a YouTube member if you wanted to. Same with Rumble. I didn't even set up the Rumble one. You can become a member on Rumble. I guess I get some cut of it, but I don't create those. So yeah, they exist. I didn't create them. So yes, it is. I hope you'll join locals. If you're on locals right now or on Patreon, I'm going to do an extra segment right now for those of you who are members about the Starbucks strike, and maybe we'll also get to one other after that. So I hope you'll do that. And for a limited time, you can get a free month over at locals. Try it out, not spend a dime. Go to leecamp.net when you're checking out. So act like you're going to buy the $6 a month membership. When you're checking out, use promo code LeeCampFree, one word, all caps, LeeCampFree, and you get a free month. Okay, for everyone else, I will see you Monday. Here's one other update: is because I'm doing more writing, I'm shifting more to some writing. I am not going to be doing my live streams on Wednesday when I also have government secrets. So Wednesdays, this Wednesday I have government secrets. We usually do it at 9 a.m., but you can watch it any time in the day. It's also on my YouTube. You can watch it there. But so I won't be doing the 3 p.m. live stream on days I have government secrets. So on Wednesday. So that is a slight schedule change. It will only change 2 live streams a month. So just to let you know, that's why I'm not there Wednesday. But I will have government secrets Wednesday. So join me for that if you want. All right. For everyone else, I will see you Wednesday for government secrets and Thursday for another Unredacted Tonight. And thank you so much for supporting the show. Everybody at locals and Patreon, hang in there. I'll be with you in just a second. You guys all right.